Welcome to Cisco HyperFlex video series. This is Introduction to HyperlexDataPlatform. Cisco HyperFlex is a hyperconverged solution offered by Cisco. This means that it is a highly scalable data center system which joins all the resources from all of the servers in the HyperFlex cluster into a common pool. Cisco HyperFlex is based on the Cisco UCS C-Series servers. These are rack-mount servers which have been in the Cisco's portfolio for a decade. This gives some significant advantages to Cisco HyperFlex, as its hardware has been tried and tested in a huge number of deployments. But the hardware itself is not truly where the functionalities of HyperFlex hail from. The part which makes HyperFlex function as a hyperconverged infrastructure is the software component, which a wizard installs onto the hardware. This software creates a common data platform, which is spread across all the individual HyperFlex servers in the HyperFlex cluster. Individual HyperFlex nodes in a HyperFlex cluster are called converged nodes. These converged nodes provide the underlying hardware, which is then merged by the HyperFlex software in a common data platform by integrating them into a distributed file system called StoreFS, which is the distributed file system of the HyperFlex. StoreFS was developed by the company named SpringPath, and Cisco bought exclusive rights to their solution in 2016. Then, in 2017, the company was acquired by Cisco, and now SpringPath provides the backbone of the data platform. It ensures that all the information is spread evenly across the cluster and also creates copies of the data the instant it is written, so that no data is lost if a failure happens. One of the major features of the HyperFlex hyperconverged infrastructure is that it includes high-performance networking as a part of the solution. This network is used by the StoreFS log-structured file system to transfer information quickly and reliably from one server to the next, without any preferences which server should perform the data operation. It also provides the communication channel for the VMs, management, and additional functionalities. To accommodate this network-based operation, individual servers in a regular HyperFlex cluster are connected to the Fabric interconnects, which also act as the hardware management platform, just as they do on other managed Cisco UCS servers. But even though the HyperFlex hardware shares most of the hardware with the rest of the rack-mounted servers, the regular and HyperFlex servers are distinct from one another. HyperFlex Data Platform software is not supported on a regular UCS-C server. When you receive your HyperFlex servers and connect at least 3 of them to the Fabric interconnects, you will be able to install HyperFlex cluster by using the HyperFlex installer. Installer is a virtual machine which you deploy on your infrastructure, and it configures the hardware and software components of the Cisco HyperFlex for you. This means the installation procedure is drastically simplified, since you do not have to manually configure the system. Instead, you only provide the connectivity and credentials to the installer, and the installer takes care of the rest. This is possible since the entire HyperFlex infrastructure is offered by one single vendor, Cisco, and each individual part of the system is designed to integrate with all the rest. Adding a server is also simple, since you use the same installer to go through the process of adding another node to the cluster. Hyperconverged systems are relatively easy to expand, but HyperFlex takes this to another level, where only minimal knowledge of the underlying systems is required. Expansions are also non-disruptive to existing workload, no downtime required. The distributed design of the HyperFlex infrastructure distributes the load to all the nodes in the cluster, and make HyperFlex also very resilient to failures, since no one part is mandatory for the entire system to function normally, and this can even be further optimized by the choices you make during the installation. But HyperFlex is much more than what we just described. If you take into account all the tools that are provided by Cisco for HyperFlex, like Cisco Intersight, Cisco Container Platform, and Cisco Cloud Center, HyperFlex becomes the natural infrastructure for cloud, with the best performance in class and the entire stack from one vendor, Cisco. HyperFlex brings ease of management, excellent performance, and tight security features to the cloud deployed on the HyperFlex platform. This was the introduction to HyperFlex Data Platform. Thank you for watching.